Well, today I'm going to show you a Bible that, if I had to describe this in one word, I would use the word sentimental. And the reason for that is this is a King James Bible. I grew up using the King James Version when I was young, up through most of college, so into my around 20 years old. First 20 years or so of my life, I used the King James Version. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So when I think of my past, I think of the 80s, and I think of the King James Version when I think of church and studying the Bible. And this here is a Church Bible Publishers King James Version. That's all they produce. So I wanted to share this with my audience. A lot of people do know about Church Bible Publishers, but not everybody. And if you're looking for a King James Bible, and recently I did a video in my translation series on the King James, and I said it would be really good if you read through the King James, because it's a classic translation. This is a good company to get a King James from if you want a good quality one, and I'm going to show you today, agreeing with other reviewers who have said this is my favorite text block. Now, this is really unique because this is a ministry, from what I understand, that produces these Bibles. They do it themselves, and so they're doing things a lot more at cost. You can pay a couple bucks and they'll put it in a box for you. It's just a very simple box. But here is the one that I got is, so this is interesting. This is actually a Cambridge text block, which was traditionally called, and still I believe is called, the Cambridge Turquoise. And again, I said this is sentimental, and I'm going to show you why. But the first off the bat sentimental thing to me is the colors. I don't know, for some reason when I think about the early 1980s, I think of this kind of brown and gold. Am I right? Tell me in the comments if I'm right, that just seemed to be a color scheme. And something about just the way they did this just kind of reminds me of the 1980s. So this is ironed calfskin. I think it's a very thin piece of leather over something that's on the inside here, and then a synthetic liner. They have different covers available at Church Bible Publishers, so you can get this in different options, such as a top grain leather, a lambskin, and when they're available, I think they're about to run out, they even have a water buffalo cover. So that's pretty interesting. So let's look at this. Nice ribs. Everything on this is very good. It's a $75 Bible. A lot of their Bibles are in that price range for something like this. That's a really good deal for a Bible that is well constructed. It's got perimeter stitching. But one thing that's so interesting is there are little imperfections. This one, the printing looks to be a little bit slanted here to my eye. And if you look at the stitching, it's not always even. It gets a little closer there. Up here you can kind of see where they double stitched. I think where the machine probably ended, it kind of double stitched there, and I need to cut off some little overhang there. It's got gold gilding, which looks great, but no art gilding underneath and no gilt line on the edge. So very simple, more comparable to when I was showing the Schuyler Bibles, the calfskin version, except this is a soft cover. Then we've got these gold ribbons here, which are thin single-sided satin, but they're very nice and long enough to get you to be able to open up the Bible easily and mark your place. So good ribbons, but I'll tell you, the other thing that's sentimental about this, it is the King James, but when we get into it, this is the old Cambridge text. You can get a Cambridge version of this, but you're going to spend, oh boy, more than twice as much, I would say. It depends on which cover you get, but probably around twice as much. If you get the top of the line, then you're really spending over $200 for this. But man, for $75. I just, I gotta say, I like everything about this. This Cambridge text on the inside is classic. It does have a Church Bible Publishers logo in here. There's their website, and that's the order number for this model. Now let's look at this as we get in here. Some interesting things about the King James. The King James actually had this letter to the king, the epistle dedicatory it's called. You can see that on the next page. And then we also have the translators to the reader. So the King James translators actually wrote a fairly lengthy document to be put in their Bibles to those who would read the Bible and read their translation. Kind of a explanation, a little bit of a defense of why they translated. And then that actually, by the way, isn't in a lot of Bibles, the translators to the reader, because it takes up more space. So a lot of Bibles have excluded that over the years. So that's really cool. Then we've got the table of contents. And now, this is the thing I really, it's sentimental, but it's also just, it's great. Look at this text. That, when I see that, for me, that's just like how a Bible's supposed to look. And it's partly the printing. This is like a I believe, I could be wrong on this, I think this is a 1920s typeset. So it's got like the 1980s look to it, aesthetic. It's got the 1920s typeset, very classic, with the double column verse by verse format, which is very common for King James. Most of the time you do get that. And then center column references. One thing though that makes this up to date, in my opinion though, is that it is really crisp. So this was done at a time before they had like laser printing. The typeset itself would have been done using more manual machinery. And so it has that look to it, but it's been printed very crisply because of what we have for modern printing technology. So it's like the best of both worlds. It's like this old school look, but with modern crispness to it. I'm sure the original Bibles looked pretty good, but I have a feeling this looks even crisper and clearer. It is a somewhere around a 10 to 11 point font, which is fantastic. Also, these center references, this is really cool. When you're looking at a letter here, all you have to do, oh boy, I wish Bibles today did this, is just go straight over here. Now, the New King James Nelson, this is exciting, is actually going to put out a New King James center column reference in verse by verse format. So there is a little bit of a push toward in that direction, you know, people kind of wanting something more classic. But I would like them to make it look exactly like this, you know, to a T. I don't think that's going to happen, but it'll still be really nice looking and it'll have their unique look. But I like the lines on the side there, separating the text from the center column references. And I like the font itself. The size of the font, fantastic. As others have pointed out, the spacing between the lines, fantastic. And again, because this is more modern printing, it's more consistent. Even in terms of where the words land on the page, it almost honestly looks line matched. And of course, I don't believe it is, because this is an older text typeset, but man, it is really, really good as far as the ghosting. You do not get a lot of ghosting. That's incredible, because I am telling you, this is dark print. Really dark print. Now with the Cambridge, it's a little bit different. The page size, it's actually a little bit of a thinner Bible from what I've seen in other pictures. So the margins on this, it is a little bit wider Bible, but the margins are actually a little bigger around the edge here, which in some ways is good, right? If you like to write some notes, be able to write in the margins, this actually gives you more space, I think, than even the Cambridge would by a little bit. Some other really cool things as we get to, so we're getting to the end of the Old Testament, and it says there we are at the end of the prophets, and then we have the New Testament of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, translated out of the original Greek, and with the former translations diligently compared and revised by His Majesty's special command, appointed to be read in churches. Wow, that's cool. That's very King Jamesy right there. Very cool. All right, so then there's the New Testament, and this is red letter. So let's take a look at the red letter text in this Sermon on the Mount here. Jesus speaking. I want to do a video sometime on red letter, and it might be a little bit on the humorous side, a little tongue-in-cheek, but people get really opinionated about whether Bibles should have red letter or not, and I just think it's a matter of preference. I can understand different reasons, so sometime I'll talk about that. But anyway, this is red letter, and it looks great. Definitely better than Bibles like the Thompson Chain, which is kind of notoriously not good red letter color. This looks really good. It's not dark like Schuyler or Cambridge, but it's nice. It looks fine. Really does. And then when we get to the end of the New Testament, end of Revelation, I really like this. You look at Revelation 22, the very end of the Bible, the end. So you know that we're at the end of the Bible. And then it does have, this is different than the Cambridge because the newer Cambridge edition actually has an updated concordance, I think, or at least an updated layout. This is the concordance to the Old and New Testaments, just kind of the classic one. So you get a pretty nice concordance telling you about the use of these different words and references, where to find them in the Bible. And then we get to the maps. The maps in this, really, this is where you kind of see this is, this to me strikes me as being a facsimile, even though I think the whole Bible, would be considered a facsimile. This is where you really notice it. Some have said that the maps are nice. I think they're just average in terms of print quality. There's something about the words that just didn't come out as clear. The color looks a little bit, I don't know. It's like a really well done copy, but it does strike me as being a copy. But they're okay. They're fine. They're on kind of a cardstock paper, kind of a matte finish, so that's nice. And they're good maps. This is the Ministry of Jesus, and they're fine. Just a little hard to read that printing, in my opinion. It's not as crisp as you would get in other Bibles. But for $75, man, you're really getting a lot. And again, for me, I just turned 40 recently, and what I'm finding, a lot of you can relate to this, is it's not just that your childhood, it's not just that things have changed. It's that literally things from your childhood, you no longer have them anymore. People that you love have gone on to be with the Lord, and that's happened to me over the years. And so I really have that nostalgia and longing sometimes for the past, and this Bible really represents that to me in various ways. It's kind of like I said, it's the 1980s aesthetic, 1920s layout, but the print quality of this is really up to date. They just did a fantastic job. So church Bible publishers, I definitely would recommend, if you want to get a good quality King James Version Bible, check them out, and you will get a lot for your money. Thank you so much for watching this review from a Frisch perspective.